It's just all about love and life and living in freedom. That's what it's all about for me now.
Welcome to the Rich Spinster podcast. This is Alexis, and I am happy to be here. And the reason I am happy to be here recording this podcast in this moment is because I am no longer lost in the abyss of skincare. Not being lost in the abyss of skincare is going to allow me to be more productive in my life, because for the past 2 weeks, skincare has had me in a chokehold. My niece Mia, who is 17 years old, knows everything about many things that I know nothing about. Skincare is one of those things. Mia has taught me about cleansers and toners. Did you even know toners existed? I never even heard of toners before. So cleansers and toners and moisturizers. And then I've learned that there are night serums and night moisturizers, and then special eye creams that I'm supposed to dab under my eyes and then wait 10 minutes. There are daytime moisturizers and moisturizers with SPF. And then there are these creams that you're supposed to use once a week or twice a week. And they're supposed to smooth out the skin tone and get rid of dark spots. I don't have time for all of this. The other day, I spent about 20 minutes washing my face. 20 minutes that I can never get back. And I understand that this is a part of self-care for some people, but my entire life I've been just a Dove girl, just soap and water, and it's done the job because I'm not seeing the perks of this. I actually thought I would give skincare a try because I am recording a podcast, a video version for YouTube, and you want to look like your best self, right? But now I realize I just don't care. You're going to get the face that you're going to get. You're going to get me with bags under my eyes sometimes. You're going to get me with chapped lips sometimes, and that's just what it is. I love and I accept my face. Now, listen, if someone could show me some benefit of this process, then maybe I would consider it again. But unless I am going to be aging like Benjamin Buttons, I don't see the point. I just don't see the perks right now for me. So I am tapping out. I am tapping out of the skincare world a good $350 later. And also when it comes to skincare, I just don't know I don't know what my goal is. What is the goal? Like how good is it supposed to get? Those of you who are into skincare, are y'all traveling with that stuff? That is just so much attention to the face. I love my face though. I love my face. I accept it as it is. And I'm not trying to spend more money and time to make it different. My face is fine just as it is. It's funny, like just even saying that reminds me of a song that I love called The Story. And it talks about all of the lines on my face show you the story of who I am. So many stories of where I've been and how I've got to where I am. But these stories don't mean anything when you've got no one to tell them to. It's true. I was made for you. So when you see me on YouTube and I have puffy eyes or I look tired, I'm just telling you the story of who I am. My face was a big topic of conversation as a child. And even as an adult, my face has been a topic of conversation a time or two. I remember as a child, one thing that I heard often was fix your face. If I was upset about something, fix your face. If I was pouting, fix your face. And if I was crying, fix your face and stop crying before I give you something to cry about. And I would be like, you already gave me something to cry about. That's why we're here. Fix your face is something that I heard all of the time. And when I heard that, it hurt me. It hurt my feelings because I believed that my face was this unique window, a stained glass window of sorts. And when people told me to fix my face, what I really heard was that there was a crack in my window, that my face was not good enough. And in time, what I understood was that they were trying to control my expression. Anybody who told me to fix my face as a child was telling me that whatever I was feeling in that moment was not important. What only mattered was how I was presenting myself to the world. You see, I had to make sure that my face did not show that I was angry. I had to make sure that my face didn't show that I had an attitude about whatever it is that someone else had said. My face essentially did not belong to me. It belonged to all of the adults in the world who told me to fix it. You will struggle to find photographs of me as a child where I am smiling. I have this one particular photo, and I was a toddler, maybe 3, and it was picture day at the preschool. I was in line, I was told, with my friends, and we were likely playing as toddlers do. And I'm sure that entire experience for the adults was like herding cats. Okay. But it was my turn finally to sit on the stool, and they sat me on my stool. They sat me there in my blue sweater. And then they said, smile. And they tried everything that they could do to get me to smile. I was told that they had stuffed animals, and they had pictures of cats, and they had adults making funny faces, and I would not smile. What did they do? They took that picture. And after the picture, I was told that I went back into line, and I started playing again. And we played, and then we went over to recess. I love that I didn't give in that moment. I was defiant. Even as that small child, my face was mine, and I couldn't control a lot of the things around me, but I could control my face, at least at that moment. But as time went on, I kept hearing the same thing over and over, and even from friends. I remember going to school, and I attended a Catholic school, and there was a sister there, Sister Elaine, who was the principal, and Sister Elaine believed in correction. There was never a time where students would be passing in the hall where Sister Elaine didn't say, pull up your socks, where Sister Elaine didn't say, pull down your sweater. And when it came to me, though, Sister Elaine would say, fix your face, smile, and I'd obey. But inside, I was saying, Sister Elaine, you go straight to hell. That's what I was saying inside of me. You go straight to hell. I did not want to fix my face. I felt so insulted by that demand. There was one time we were walking through the courtyard that led to the lunchroom, and we were walking in a single file line, and I saw Sister Elaine slap the taste out of a student's mouth. He was probably an 8th grade boy, and he was standing there, and she was chastising him, finger pointing in his face as his cheek glowed fiery red. And I remember looking at that. And I thought, I really hope she never does that to me. If she does that to me, I'm going to try my best to defend myself and send Sister Elaine to hell. And as I was having that thought, Sister Elaine turned and looked in my direction. When she did, I fixed my face. I smiled slightly, and then I looked away. I hated someone having that kind of control over me. It bothered me that she told me that I needed to smile. There was someone at that school, though, who never told me to fix my face. And that person was Father Anglum. Father Anglum was the priest that all of the children there loved. I loved him so much because he showed so much love to all of us. I remember a time when Father Anglum was coming through the courtyard that I was going through with my class to go to lunch. And the gate opened. And when the gate opened, it was like a spotlight came down from heaven and shined upon Father Anglum. The children parted like the Red Sea, and everybody was yelling, Father Anglum, trying to get his attention. Father Anglum smiled. Hello, children. Hello, children. He repeated it over and over again. The shit was like a movie. I mean, he was crossing that courtyard like a rock star. He was crossing that courtyard like he was fucking Bono. And when he crossed, he made a beeline in my direction. I was so happy to see him coming my way. I started saying, hi, Father Anglum, along with the other classmates of mine, trying to get his attention. And what did he do? Father Anglum came up to me and he put his hand on my face and he said, hello, Alexis. Hello, Alexis. And in that moment, you could not tell me shit about life. I walked into the lunchroom with my class. I sat down and I had my chocolate milk and I sipped on that bitch like a boss. I loved Father Anglum for acknowledging my face and his face. It was so kind. It was so beautiful. He always had a pleasant disposition. He had the face of someone everybody could love, everybody could trust. Just by looking at him, people knew he was a good man. I always loved Father Anglum, so much so that I looked him up about 10 years ago. I wanted to know what had happened to him. Was he still at the school? Did he move away? Did other children have the benefit of his love and attention? So I Googled. Father Anglum had passed away, I believe, in Ireland. And I kept reading. Father Anglum had been caught up in the Catholic Church's priest sex scandal. And that told me that just looking at somebody's face and thinking that you know what's behind it is bullshit. That told me that it is possible for that to all be smoke and mirrors. So what was really important was what was on the inside. And I thought about that more and more as people told me to fix my face, and I started feeling resentment. I appreciated women that I would see navigate the world who never smiled. And I know it sounds weird. It's not that I wanted to be like women who were mean, but I love the fact that when women didn't smile, I felt like at that time in my life that they had ownership of their face. They had ownership of their feelings. And that was something that I didn't have a right to at that time in my life. I remember a teacher, Miss Stegman. She was a teacher at my high school at the time, and I think she was only there like a year. Miss Stegman was a hippie. Miss Stegman was a white woman who wore long skirts. She wore beaded anklets and open-toe shoes, and I would always wondered how she got away with that as a teacher. Miss Stegman had long, sandy blonde hair, and she wore her bangs always just a little too long. And her bangs would move because as she would blink, her eyelashes would move the hair. I love Miss Stegman because she was the first person who told me that I was a good writer. I had written an essay and she asked me if she could read my essay to the class. And she told me, this is really good writing. You're a really good writer, Alexis. Miss Stegman wasn't smiley. She was direct. She was serious. And I thought she was beautiful. And when I really thought she was beautiful was when one day she came in and she had cut her hair. She had cut her bangs, and all of the students noticed that those bangs now exposed her beautiful eyes. And I loved it. I thought she looked great. And I remember someone saying, "Oh, Miss Stegman, you cut your bangs." And she said, "I did. And you can see my eyes now." And this one asshole named Isaac said, "Nah, I just see wrinkles." Miss Stegman did not miss a beat. She turned and looked at him and she said, "These are crow's feet." I loved the way she said that with confidence. And it was in that moment that I was like, I want crow's feet. Because I thought crow's feet would give me confidence, and I thought crow's feet were sexy. I'd never even heard of crow's feet before. But in that moment, I wanted to be like Ms. Stegeman. I wanted to have crow's feet and not give a fuck. There were also other women in my life that I was exposed to. There was a woman who attended a church that I had to attend for a short period of time. My brother was a musician, and so my brother played piano for this particular church. So I had to go. Wasn't my choice. But there was a woman there. Her name is Mrs. Anderson. Mrs. Anderson was like 6 feet tall. She was so beautiful to me because she was 6 feet tall. I'm only 5'5", and at that time I was maybe 5'3". And I would watch Mrs. Anderson come down the aisle to take her seat in the sanctuary. She would come in, the statuesque woman walking down the aisle. She would look at some people. She would nod. She would look at other people and she would have a slight smile. She would look at others and wink. And one Sunday, Mrs. Anderson looked at me. I was sitting to the left of the aisle and she smiled. Big, beautiful smile. Her entire face lit up. And I felt so special in that moment. I felt so seen. I watched her the entire service. While everyone else was looking at the good book, I was looking at Mrs. Anderson. And at one point, she crossed her legs. It was the most amazing thing I think I had ever witnessed in that moment. Those long legs crossing so gracefully. She was a gazelle. I remember trying to emulate it, and it just, I didn't have a lot of leg to work with, so it wasn't the same effect, but I watched her. I also watched her face as my brother sang. He sang this one song, "Give Thanks." And as he started singing, I will never forget her leaning back in her seat. She closed her eyes and she tilted her head back and she smiled. It was such a beautiful moment, and I felt so honored to witness that. It stuck with me how her expressions changed as she walked down the aisle and how she owned that. I love that, and I kept thinking I wanted to emulate that one day. One day I would own my expressions, but it would be a long time before I did that. I spent my 20s trying to soften my face, trying to fix my face because it seemed as though it wasn't acceptable. When I was told to change the expression on my face, what I was basically being told is how I felt did not matter. What only mattered is how I made others feel. My feelings were less important than their comfort. And I believe that to a certain extent. I mean, I guess there was a part of me that knew it was bullshit, but I thought it was the bullshit I had to deal with. So I would fake smile, I would fake laugh, I would try to soften my expression and not stare too long. And I realized by the time I was approaching 30, that none of that had helped me. In fact, what it was doing was hurting me because it was me denying myself, denying my expression for other people who didn't seem to be accepting me in the first place. It never stopped people from stereotyping me as angry when I was just being quiet. It never stopped people from thinking that as a Black woman, I was aggressive when I was just being compassionate. It never protected me from all of the things that I guess adults thought that they were protecting me from. And so I made a decision. As my 30th birthday approached, I made one of the best decisions of my life. I got out my journal and I wrote, at 30, I will no longer fix my face. At 30, I will no longer fake smile. I look back on that now and think like how freaking revolutionary that really was for me at that time, considering my life experiences. But I knew that I had to do that for myself because I knew that that was the first step into womanhood for me because I became a woman. I started that process really at 30. That was the age that I started owning myself, and I couldn't own myself unless I owned every part of me, which started with my face. Now, did that stop people from making assumptions about me? Absolutely not. Were there still misunderstandings? Did people still find my curiosity with my eyes? Did they still think of that as aggression, or were they confused by my expressions? Yes, it has happened. Yes, people have still told me, girl, your face, fix your face. But now, and all the time post 30, I knew how to respond to it. There were times when I would say there was absolutely nothing wrong with my face. Thank you. There were times I would just ask, what? And I'm not going to lie. There have been other times when people have told me to fix my face. And I've said, and if I don't, then what? I also think that it's very bold. It's extremely bold for someone to tell someone to change how they are expressing themselves. Our faces are how we communicate with each other. Our faces are how we connect with each other's humanity. But I was always taught by what people said that my humanity didn't matter in that way. As women, we are judged by our faces, and especially as Black women, we are judged by our faces. And I stopped caring about that judgment as much because I understood that I couldn't control it. And I understood that softening my face was just me being more palatable to people, but I wasn't able to be palatable to myself in that way. I had to change that. I had to own it. I had to embody what it meant to be Alexis in every single way. And that was a bold start for me. And then I think about the messages, even back when I was a child. You know, the little orphan Annie told me I was never fully dressed without a smile. Is that so? You know, and what about songs like Smile? Smile though your heart is breaking. Smile even though it's aching, or whatever. Why am I doing that? Church songs like Kirk Franklin. I smile even though I hurt. See, I smile. I know God is working, so I smile even though I've been here for a while. Motherfucker, for what? Why am I doing that? Why am I performing happy if I am not happy? I don't want to perform meek if I'm not meek. I want to stand in who I am with my shoulders back. And I understood that nobody was going to lead me to that path of freedom. I had to walk there alone. And I've been walking there alone, putting my best face forward ever since I was 30. I am very careful to not continue the tradition of telling a woman or a girl to fix their face. Your face is beautiful, sis. Your face was carved by the master. I think that sometimes when I look at my niece. I look at my niece sometimes and the expressions that she has on her face, and I think to myself, wow, that face is perfect. And however she chooses to look and express her face, it belongs to her. I want her to have it. I want her to own it. I don't want her to spend 29 years of her life pretending. Because what did I get for it? I didn't get anything for it but some damn anxiety. Some anxiety and some unexpressed rage, and the world has enough of that. I can also say that coming from a culture where that is said often, oftentimes we say things and it's just passed down and we don't think about how it's impacted us and how it impacts other people. But I've been very intentional to not repeat that. I also think as a woman, it's important to not perpetuate these tenets of patriarchy, where a woman is supposed to appear pleasant and pretty. And I just understood that I never had much use for that none of that was getting me anywhere. I should also add that even though I had a good sense of self very early as a child, I understood that I was confined by my environment. I was confined by society, and that made me angry. So oftentimes when people wanted me to perform for them in that way, it just made me angrier that I could not express my anger. Smile. I wanted to say, bitch, you smile. I'm trying to play Uno here. But that is how I felt. I was a strong-willed child, but I was very sensitive. And so the only thing that I really had was rebellion when it came to a photo. I knew that I could own myself in that way. And I knew that nobody could really do anything about it. So that's what I had. My rebellious face in photos when I was a child. And little did I know that face would speak to me as I got older. I look at pictures of myself when I was maybe in my 20s and I don't recognize myself. But you know who I recognize? The me that was sitting there at 3 in that blue sweater. That was my truest self. That was my spirit saying, hello, Alexis. Look at your face. I will see you again one day. Thank you for listening to the Rich Spinster podcast. I will see your beautiful faces again soon.